Mishpucha, it's Courtney, America's Jewish mother. If I look a little haggard, it's because I just did a yoga class and took char outside, so a little casual looking today. But anyway, I am here to do my non-Victober October TBR. Yes, I know, Victober is a booktube institution, but I just have other things that I want to read that aren't Victorian, and I've also read Victorian novels at other points this year. I read Oscar Wilde's The Picture of Dorian Gray. I read Thomas Hardy's The Mayor of Casterbridge. I read Henry James's Portrait of a Lady. Is not technically Victorian because James is an American, but the whole thing is set in England, so I'm going to call it Victorian adjacent. So anyway, I feel like I don't really need to do Victober because I've already been reading some Victorian things earlier in the year. And plus, like I said, I have other things I want to get to before the year is over with. So here's my non-Victober. It's not an anti-Victober TBR, but it's just a non-Victober TBR for the month of October. So I'm going to try to do these in the order of the biggest book to the smallest book so I can lift them up at the end with no problem. We're going to see how that goes. So I want to read in October Stony the Road, Reconstruction, White Supremacy, and the Rise of Jim Crow by Henry Louis Gates Jr. Henry Louis Gates Jr. is a very well-known, influential African-American scholar. And by African-American scholar, I guess I mean that in both senses of the word. He himself is African-American, but he's also a scholar of African-American history and literature. So I was given this as a gift on my last birthday, not the birthday I had this year, but a year before. And so I definitely want to read it. Plus, it's of interest to me. So it's described as a profound new rendering of the struggle by African Americans for equality after the Civil War and the violent counter-revolution that re-subjugated them, as seen through the prism of the war of images and ideas that have left an enduring stain on the American mind. So it sounds like, especially based on my reading earlier this year of White Rage, that this will probably be a good supplement to that information. Also, it's blurbed on the back by such figures as Jill Lepore, author of These Truths, and David Blight, the author of the new Frederick Douglass biography, and the late Representative John Lewis. So, I mean, what else do you need? I also want to read in October another book that was given to me as a gift several years back at this point. This is called A Bride for One Night, Talmud Tales by Ruth Calderon. So this was given to me by someone who I was friends with at the synagogue where I used to go in Auburn, Alabama. And yeah, I think she just basically rewrites midrashim and stories from the Talmud. That's my understanding of this. It's also pretty short, which is good because I don't know if I'm going to make it through all 10 books I want to make it through in October. We're going to have to see. But yeah, it's on the shorter side. So I'm interested to see what this is like. Like I said, it's my understanding that it's a sort of retelling of stories and midrashim from the Talmud, so should be interesting. The next book I want to get to in October is one I hauled recently, Begin Again, James Baldwin's America and Its Urgent Lessons for Our Own by Eddie Escalade Jr., and I talked about this in my most recent haul video, which I will link down below if you want to check that out. But basically, it kind of does what the title says. It talks about James Baldwin's own politics and the development of his own sort of more politicized writing during the time when he was alive, and what that has to tell us today in the moment in which we now find ourselves in 2020. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting to this one. When I hauled it, I read the description on the inside, and I basically, when I got done with it, I was like, well, shoot, I'm ready to sit down and read that right now. So I definitely wanted to prioritize getting to this one because it sounded very interesting. Okay, the next two books that I want to read, or in the case of one of them, at least start reading in October, are for Britta Bowler and Mel at Mel's Bookland Adventures read-along that they're hosting this year called Read German Books 2020. Or Read More German Books 2020. Anyway, I'm going to link it in both of their channels down in the description box below. And basically, to my understanding, the idea is just that they want you to read any book that was originally published in German. And it doesn't have to be written by an author from Germany. It just has to be originally published in the German language. So they're trying to encourage more reading of German language books in translation. Or German language if you actually speak that. So the one that I'm going to start but probably not finish in October is the complete stories of Franz Kafka. I've read some of these before, and I especially enjoy Kafka's short story, The Hunger Artist, and I've taught it before. And I've read some of the shorter pieces in here and have quite liked them, so I'm looking forward to reading more of Kafka. I'm also kind of looking forward to thinking about how his Jewish identity potentially influenced his writing. And he was born in Prague in what is now the Czech Republic, but he originally wrote in German. So this is for part of that read along. The other book I want to get to in October that's part of intended to be part of this read along is Faust by Goethe. This is a very old modern library college edition of this book. I don't even know if it says who the translator is. Let's see. Translated in the original meters by Bayard Taylor. All right. And I would also consider this to be a Victorian adjacent book. Yes, it was written in German, and it was very slightly before the Victorian era, but it's still 19th century, and it's pretty close to Victorian era, so I would call this Victorian adjacent. Oh, I forgot to say who translated the Kafka complete stories. They were translated by... Well, let me see if it even tells me who translated them. The foreword's by John Updike. Let's see if there's a translator's note. It says edited by Nachum Glotzer. I wonder if that's who translated them. Huh. Alright, well, I don't know why this doesn't say who translated them. Oh, well. But this was translated by Bayard Taylor. So I've never read Faust, but I think probably most people at least know the basic premise of Faust. It's about this guy who sells his soul to the devil for a bargain that goes awry. So I'm definitely looking forward to getting to this after all these years. And after all the years that I've owned this book and still haven't read it. So this is my other Read German Books 2020 contribution to that read-along. Next book I want to get to in October is one that I am buddy reading with Lindsay from Lindsay's Book Life, and that is The Plague of Doves by Louise Erdrich. I also recently hauled this in the same video where I talked about Begin Again by Eddie Escalade Jr., so I'm not going to rehash it here, but it starts off with a murder in this small town in North Dakota, and I guess sort of the reverberations or repercussions from that on the nearby reservation. So that is my understanding of this, and again, it was also raved about by both Greg from Supposedly Fun and Sean the Book Maniac, so I've also read a couple of Erdrich's books and really liked them, so I'm looking forward to reading more Erdrich in October with Lindsay. And this is her first Erdrich book, so yay. Hopefully it won't be her last. I also want to read in October Sway, The Irresistible Pull of Irrational Behavior by Ori Brofman and Ram Brofman. And this is a book that, it's like a little pop psychology, pop sociology sort of book. And I bought this years ago and I started reading it and never finished it. So now that I have my whole, I'm going to read all the books that I own that I haven't read yet, now that I'm in that as a goal. I'm finally going to read them. So, yeah, so basically it says that it draws on research from social psychology, behavioral economics, and organizational behavior. And they talk about the forces that derail our logical thinking and sabotage our decision making. So that should be quite interesting. The next book I want to read in October, I do not have a physical copy of it here with me, but it is the book for the virtual book club that Lindsay at Lindsay's Book Life runs, and that is How Much of These Hills is Gold by C. Pam Zhang. And I really don't know anything about this book except that I think it focuses on two kids during the gold rush or something. Anyway, I've heard a lot of sort of praise about it, especially after it made the Booker long list, even though it didn't make the short list. So I'm curious to see what that has to offer. I also want to read in October Hope and Other Dangerous Pursuits by Layla Lalami. And this I'm really reading to try to screen it to see if it has a story that I can use in my Multicultural American Lit course when I teach a unit on Arab American literature. So that would be good if there was a story in here that I could use. Also, I've never read Layla Lalami before, so I am looking forward to reading this. And I know that her book, The Moors Account, I think won some awards. And I also heard some good things about the follow-up novel that she wrote. Was it The Other Americans? Is that what it was called? I've heard good things about that too. So anyway, I'm definitely looking forward to reading this. Probably be reading this at the start of October because I need to screen it sooner rather than later. And then the last book I want to read in October is Carson McCullers' The Heart is a Lonely Hunter, because I've never read this book and I've owned it for well over a decade. In fact, I'm pretty sure I tried to start reading this when I was still in high school and didn't finish it. So, yeah, and this is Carson McCullers' debut novel, and it's about, I think, someone who is, I think it's about a deaf man and his experiences with several different people. I think he's maybe deaf and mute. And it's about his experience with several different people in this town who are friends with him or try to befriend him and talk to him about all of their problems. And one is a black man, one is like a young woman who is sort of coming into her own sexuality as a lesbian, I think. One is this Greek guy, and there's probably another guy that I don't remember who it is. But anyway, it's a classic of American literature. I'm a little embarrassed that I haven't read this, so I'm going to fix that and finally get around to reading this book. So yeah, that is everything that I aim to read in the month of October. Again, I don't know whether I will be successful or not, but there you have it. So yeah, if you have thoughts about any of these books, please let me know down in the comments below, especially if you think I should prioritize some of them over others. And yeah, let me know what you're looking forward to reading in the month of October. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're staying healthy. Hope you're doing good reading whatever you're reading. And until next time, what did Killy to call you, mother?